everyone that's attended. We are your Health Tug Organising Committee. If you do have any questions or want to connect with us, our Twitter logins are shared there. You're more than welcome to reach out to us. And likewise, if you have any ideas for future speakers, please do reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So assuming I can now get Prezi to work as I was expecting, I'll try and skip today's tug and move straight on to highlights. So as always with the Health Tug, we just want to share some highlights across the community from when we last met in August. A shout out to Lindsay Betzendahl, who has recently started a new Tableau initiative called Monday Minis. Lindsay, I don't know if you want to come off mute and just give a quick kind of 30 seconds in terms of what the initiative is about.
Yeah, sure. I've been thinking about something for a while, just putting out like little helpful tips for folks in kind of a really instructional way. I teach a class at Temple University, and people would often ask me, how do I create this type of chart or do this type of thing? And I know there's a ton of information out there, but I thought if I could put it into some kind of little bite size, both Tableau dashboard that you could download and really reverse engineer with all the explanations in it, as well as have a blog that kind of said some of the same information. So depending on your preference in how you learn, you have two different ways to kind of get a little nugget of information on how to do something in Tableau. So I already have a couple planned, and there'll be another one coming out on Monday.
Cool, thanks, Lindsay. And also, before we stop embarrassing Lindsay with the shout outs, just a massive congratulations on behalf of everyone, Lindsay, for your recent contribution to the book that you successfully got published, Visualizing Health and Healthcare Data. So massive congratulations, and I believe that's available to buy in, I think the phrase is all good bookshops now, isn't it?
That is correct. It is out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all your regular book retailers.
Cool. It's an amazing achievement, so seriously well done. And then we just wanted to give a shout out to Swati Dave, who recently got a Viz of the Day for health spending. So what we try and do is we do search back through recent Viz of the Days and just identify any that had a healthcare theme. So congratulations to Swati for looking at healthcare spending across countries. And then last but not least, on the community highlights, I'm sure many of you would have enjoyed Tableau Conference-ish, which was held in early October. There were actually over 100,000 data enthusiasts that actually registered and watched the content across the 3 days. We just wanted to give a shout out to say that the recordings are currently available on the Tableau Conference portal, but just be aware they are there for a time limited period. So I think the initial deadline was around mid-November. So if you do want to check out and watch any pre-recorded content from the 3 days, it's worthwhile doing sooner rather than later before they are taken down. And then in terms of our next meeting, we do host meetings once a quarter. So our next one is planned for Q1. So as I say, if you are interested in speaking, please do reach out to Nicole, Lindsay, Mark, or myself with either personal suggestions if you would like to speak, or others that you would like us connect to. It doesn't have to necessarily be healthcare specific. It could be a specific Tableau functionality, a piece of initiative, or a culture, for instance. But please do reach out. We'd love to hear from you. This is your healthcare user group. So we're really keen to hear from you in terms of what you would like to listen and participate in enjoying in the future sessions. And before we hand over to our speaker, just on behalf of everyone in the organising committee, we would just like to say a massive heartfelt thank you to every healthcare professional, and especially those working in data that are currently working in healthcare. We recognise the incredible difficulties that people are going through and the pressure they're under with the pandemic. We are really grateful for all that you do and the ongoing commitment and compassion you show to your patients and your fellow peers. So thank you, and a massive thank you today for anyone that has taken the time to join the Health Tug, especially when we appreciate you are so busy. So a massive heartfelt thank you from all of us for all that you do. And on that note, I will hand over to Mark to be able to introduce our first speakers.
Thanks, Simon. So our first speakers today, and I believe Eric will be pulling the screen up first, are from Ochsner Health. We have Eric Fullmer, who's a marketing supervisor there, and Jeremy Reel, who is a business intelligence developer. And I will just hand it over to the both of you to kind of take it away with your presentation on Tableau and Salesforce calculating marketing ROI. Oh, and the last thing to add, while they are presenting, please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. We will have time for a few questions after the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. Again, thank you all for having us at the conference today. We're really looking forward to talking through how we're using Tableau in combination with Salesforce to help calculate our marketing's return on investment. So just for a quick agenda to start out, we're going to briefly talk about who we are, get into our need for an enterprise CRM, and then some of the challenges that we faced from a marketing standpoint, a technical standpoint, and then Jeremy's going to get us into a live dashboard demonstration at the end to show how Tableau came to the rescue for us. So just hopping right into it. Again, my name is Eric Fullmer. I am a marketing supervisor at Ochsner, focusing on analytics and campaign optimizations.
I'm Jeremy Reel, and I'm a business intelligence developer at Ochsner Health, and I support the marketing team as well as a few others.
So Jeremy and I work for Ochsner Health. We are Louisiana's largest not-for-profit health system. And in 2019, we served slightly over 876,000 patients across our 15 owned and managed hospitals, 22 affiliated hospitals, and 3 specialty hospitals. So about 3 to 4 years ago, Ochsner really started looking into an enterprise CRM. From a marketing standpoint, we had a CRM that we were previously using, and they mainly helped us with email marketing, direct mail sends, and then connecting all of our marketing efforts to see downstream revenue. But one of the main things that we felt like we were missing was really being able to use clinic data that we didn't have access to. So from our standpoint, the enterprise CRM really allowed us to start looking at meeting consumers' expectations. And in 2020, consumers' expectations have changed a lot. They now expect you to know who they are, show them that you know who they are, and then anticipate their needs along their journey. So as I mentioned, we chose Salesforce at Ochsner to help empower us to meet these expectations. So with Salesforce, we were able to bring in new clinical data that we previously didn't have access to and combine it with our existing marketing data to really create a 360-degree view of these consumers. And having that 360-degree view allowed us to personalize every interaction with them and deliver a more connected consumer experience. So it really also allowed us to drive success in 4 different ways. So first and foremost, it's learning and knowing more about our consumers. Patients have a lot of choices when it comes to healthcare. So we needed to be able to set ourselves apart from our competitors, and understanding our patients' needs and preferences allows us to communicate with them more efficiently, communicate specifically with the needs they have instead of just sending a blanket statement about a specific service line. It allows us to be more timely with those communications. So we're hitting them during the decision process. So knowing their needs, knowing when they need these services was a really big win for us. It also allowed us to strengthen our relationship with our patients. So we're able to increase patient loyalty and utilization by understanding their needs. They might initially come in for orthopedics, but we want to start promoting additional wellness offerings such as our fitness center and our pharmacy to just try to make their overall journey more seamless and just easier. We're also able to move faster with more efficiency and effectiveness. Now that we are able to trigger campaigns off of procedures and diagnosis codes, our campaigns are hitting people in a very timely fashion, and it allows us to grow our system faster, being able to communicate more efficiently with people. And finally, differentiating with new capabilities, launching new initiatives with new approaches that we previously weren't able to do. So I'd like to just walk you through how our marketing changed. So in our old marketing approach, where we only had access to marketing data, our messaging and our experiences were very siloed. So we would send an orthopedics email to a group of individuals, and the email would only have orthopedics content, typically just listing some of the services that we offered and talking about different insurance plans and stuff that we could accept. If people would then click on that email, they would get sent to a digital landing page where, again, all the content is 100% focused on orthopedics. And on that site, they could then fill out a form or call a phone number where they could go and schedule an appointment. But that's really where it stopped. We weren't able to cross-sell services. We didn't understand what other things that they'd come into Ochsner to see us for. So we didn't really offer a great consumer experience in our old marketing approach. Once we were able to really take that enterprise data and connect it with our marketing data, our campaigns were really transformed. So this is a sample journey of what we're doing now. And Amy here is a fictitious patient. Amy's scheduled to have a baby at Ochsner, but we've identified that she hasn't selected a pediatrician yet. So now we're able to serve a campaign off of a trigger. So here, Amy goes into her OBGYN for a 5th-month ultrasound. The same time that we see that ultrasound, that day, we're going to trigger an email series that's going to deploy to Amy, and it's going to try to start encouraging her to select an Ochsner pediatrician. Amy's then going to continue to receive this email series monthly throughout her pregnancy, unless some sort of medical emergency would occur. With our previous CRM, we wouldn't have been able to identify if Amy had a medical emergency. So then the messaging that we would be sending would be insensitive to her needs. So having the ability to see what sort of procedures, what sort of diagnosis she's having, we're able to cater our message and make sure we're communicating appropriately to all of our patients. So assuming Amy does schedule an interview with a pediatrician, the content in that email series is then going to change. We're going to start cross-selling other service lines and wellness offerings. So maybe now, instead of focusing on pediatrics, we're going to start pushing our pharmacy. Our Ochsner facilities, some of them have pharmacies on site. So we're going to try to make sure that Amy and her family knows that they don't need to leave the hospital and go to another pharmacy and take time away from their family and focusing on the baby in those precious moments. They can fulfill everything before they leave the hospital, and it makes it a more seamless and easy process for them in their journey. But in some situations, Salesforce will identify that email might not be the best approach for Amy. She might not be an individual that opens emails. Instead, we've identified that she interacts more with display ads and social ads. So we can serve instantly targeted display and social ads specifically to Amy. If Amy still doesn't schedule with a pediatrician after all of this messaging, our access team is going to follow up with her and just make sure that all of her healthcare needs are being met. At the end of the day, we hope that Amy chooses us as a provider, but even if she doesn't, we're going to continue engaging with her with trigger-based marketing related to her lifestyle and healthcare-based triggers that happen along her journey. So you can see here, the data is really dictating what we're serving up to our individuals now. Previously, we would send out a message and hope people would interact with it. Now we're able to send timely and very targeted messaging to individuals throughout their healthcare journey. And we start seeing the impacts of this immediately in some of our marketing-based KPIs. So email open rates skyrocket. Clicks to call to action within our emails are increasing. And our marketing leads increase 48% year over year. While this is all well and good, and it shows the impact the data is having on our marketing campaigns, at the end of the day, our executive team is interested in the number of patients we're driving, the number of encounters they're having, and how much revenue is coming in along with those encounters. So that's really where we hit our first challenge. Is our old CRM partner was handling all that for us, and it was proprietary on their side. So we didn't have access to any of that downstream revenue when we started to make this switch. So we started working with our analytics team and Jeremy to help rebuild this. So the first thing we had to do was identify the data sources and build out the CRM integrations to enable our analytics team to replicate the functionality of our previous partner. Jeremy's going to really start talking through a lot of these challenges and how the integrations work a little bit later in the presentation, but I'd just like to set the stage here. After we were able to replicate that functionality, we wanted to start developing additional logic for things like attribution and householding. Our previous attribution model was overstating typically what we were pushing from marketing. So we were taking 100% credit for any encounters that happened 12 months after a marketing touch. So anytime we would try to present out financials to our executive team, we couldn't get finance to validate those numbers because they just felt like we were overstating the numbers that we were presenting. So that was a challenge for us and one we wanted to overcome. So we developed and worked in collaboration with finance and analytics to really come up with a new model, which I'll touch on shortly. And then we also had a focus on householding. Our previous CRM partner was able to group individuals within a household together. So if we would send an email or a direct mail piece to the head of the household, anyone that fell underneath them, so the husband, the children, we would also be able to take credit for encounters that they had. So we had to start finding a way to replicate that. And thankfully, our data management team has been outstanding in rebuilding something like that. And then finally, it was about developing additional campaign insights. Now that we're doing these more advanced campaigns and we're not just doing one service line that drives to specific service line encounters, and we have an email that touches on 5 different specialties, we need to be able to tie that one campaign to those 5 different specialties to report out downstream. We also had the desire to compare campaigns against each other to optimize our ad spend. While it's great and we always look at conversion rates and click-through rates to optimize our marketing campaigns, we really wanted to be able to look at return on investment and be able to optimize by that. Because if we can drive a higher return on our investment with an orthopedics campaign versus a neurology campaign, then we'd like to know that and start pushing dollars that way. And then finally, we wanted to see what doctors were driving the most encounters from our paid marketing efforts. This allows us to really start showing that the doctors that maybe you're writing blogs for us or participating in Facebook Live events, that they're being seen more and that's leading to more encounters for them. That helps us build content that we can then push out through our paid marketing efforts. So the first step that we had to do in rebuilding was work with Jeremy's team to identify the different patient types that we wanted to capture. The first set was our marketing influence patients. These are typically known individuals, typically patients, and we send these individuals direct mails or emails. So we know their first name, we know their last name, and then we typically either know their email address or their mailing address. So this is a very easy for us to connect back to patient accounts. Our second group of patients is direct conversion patients. These are people that after receiving marketing touches, whether an online ad or print ad, they call a trackable marketing specific phone number or they fill out an online form on one of our digital landing pages. This information that we then gather has to go through a matching process within our CRM to match these individuals to patients so that we can then connect them to the encounters and see the downstream revenue. We then report out these individuals as a total sum called marketing-driven patients, which is the number that we present to our executive team. So the key performance indicators, this is a funnel that we would typically present out to our executive team. This is what we had to replicate. All of the numbers in here are artificial numbers just for sampling and demonstration purposes. So awareness impressions, this is just the number of times that our ads are viewed. We get into engagements and leads. So the number of times people click on our ads, the number of calls and form fills that we get. All of this data was nothing that we had to really find a new way to capture. All of this was captured in a third-party marketing tool that we were able to carry over. The one thing that we did have to do was work on that integration for the numbers and the form fills to feed into the CRM. Then we started getting into some of these new clinic-based things that we had to build from scratch. So appointments booked, marketing-driven patients, and revenue. This is stuff that Jeremy's team had to really figure out how to pull in. And this is data that we now have access to that we previously didn't have before on the appointments book side of things. So this is interesting, and it's ways that we can trigger campaigns off of, different insights that we can gain from this. So this has just been outstanding for us. Jeremy's team has done a great job, and he'll get into the actual dashboard a little bit later to show where these numbers are coming from. The attribution model was something that was very important. Again, we were taking way too much credit previously with our previous model. So we worked with finance to develop a new model that's displayed here. And this is one that's based on a time decay. So the decay rate is nonlinear. It's based on the average days to book by channel. So if somebody has a marketing touch on day 0, if they come in and book an appointment on day 1, they're going to get a much higher percentage credit than if they would book on day 50. So you can see in the graph here, we have 2 different channels, email and PDC. These 2 channels decay at a different rate because the average days to book by the channels differs. We further then, after assigning the channel attribution, we're going to reduce it again by the type of patient. So are they a new patient? Are they an established patient? Or are they re-engaged? So the new patient obviously is going to get the highest amount of credit. The established patient is going to get the lowest, and the re-engaged is going to get somewhere in between. Re-engaged for us is any patients that we haven't seen in the last 24 months. So now Jeremy's really going to start talking through some of the technical challenges and then how we solve for some of these marketing challenges as well.
Thanks, Eric. So the first sort of group of issues to solve was the data engineering piece. So getting all the data together from various sources. We had to leverage some DB links to get data out of our Clarity warehouse and get it into our enterprise data warehouse. We worked with our data management team to build revenue feeds for the financial data and the retail sales data. We didn't have access to any of that previously in our data warehouse. We also worked with them to develop a householding model that would attribute patients to a household, and then we can use that to aggregate that revenue and capture it. And then the large volume of data meant that we needed to rely on a Tableau extract for performance reasons. Connecting directly to these tables just wasn't going to work. The second piece is the revenue attribution model that Eric was just describing. So the first thing we needed to do that was to create an attribution for any campaigns that would be inclusive of all activities across all the campaigns that might have targeted a given person. And I'll go into that in a little more detail in a moment. And then we also wanted to do that attribution at the level of each campaign. Then we needed to manage the reporting accurately, because this any campaign construct meant that we had duplications of a lot of the encounters, depending on how many upstream marketing campaigns had touched that patient. And then lastly, identifying new versus established patients. Like Eric mentioned earlier, we wanted to scale down the amount of credit we took for an encounter based on whether this patient was new or not, and take less for the new ones, for the established ones. But we didn't have any infrastructure in place to do that, so we developed some tables to help us track that. And then lastly, learning new subject areas. So we needed to get an understanding of the structure of the financial data that we were receiving because it was new to us. And then also developing a logical model to integrate all of this marketing activity, the leads and the impressions. So the way that these data integrations look, we have certain data that's in Health Cloud, and then we have other data that's in Marketing Cloud. And there are some integrations between those that the marketing team uses, but for the purpose of this project, we were going to get all of our leads out of Health Cloud and all of our impressions out of Marketing Cloud, put those in the enterprise data warehouse, and then kind of transform them into a common, had all of our clinic data. Some of that was already in our enterprise data warehouse, but certain pieces of that we also needed to migrate for this project. And then lastly, EPSI, our financial system, had all of that transaction level financial data, and that was not in our data warehouse, so we needed to integrate that as well. So I'll run through a quick demo of sort of how the attribution works and why we needed to create this any campaign construct. So in this hypothetical, we have a patient who has received 3 marketing impressions. We can just assume that they're emails for this purpose on the cardiology, imaging, and ortho campaigns. And then after receiving those 3 emails, they booked 3 encounters, each of which had $100 in net revenue. So first, for the cardiology campaign, we're going to look at how many days elapsed between when they booked this appointment and when they received this marketing touch. So for the 3 encounters, we have 57, 121, and 286 days, which gives us these 3 attribution percentages, which we multiply by the net revenue and add up for $140 of credit for the cardiology campaign. If we do the same thing for imaging, a little less time elapsed, so the percentages are going to be a bit higher, and we wind up taking $151 of credit for that one. And then the ortho campaign, we wind up taking a bit more because even less time has elapsed. So we take $160 of credit for that. So the top of this slide will just reiterate those and then show how when we look at any campaign, we want to add all of that up. So the first encounter would get 232%, but then we'll cap that at 100%. Similar with encounter B, and then encounter C, we wind up taking 62% of credit for that. So we wind up with $262 of attributed revenue for that patient across all campaigns. So with that, I'm going to share the dashboard and So the first tab that we look at is the campaign tab, and this just gives us the upstream and downstream impact in kind of a summary form. So the first section is going to be the impressions. So that's really all of the things that flow into the marketing influence patients. So the activities that we initiate. So there's about 59,000 of those across all the campaigns. And by the way, this is not complete or actual data. It's all samples for this purpose. But we break it down then by email versus direct mail channel, and then we have a trend over time. That's going to be everything that's initiated by the patient coming to us. So the form fills, the phone calls, the mobile app, and the PDC program with a trend over time. And then the reach, which will be the distinct people that we had some communication with across all of these channels. And then we break that down again by all 6 channels and a trend over time. And then the bottom 3 sections will be the downstream impact of that activity. So how many visits did we receive? 376,000 across both. And then we break it down by the individuals who were marketing influenced and the individuals who were direct conversion. And these numbers won't necessarily add up because there's a certain amount of overlap. A person could be marketing influenced. They could also be a direct conversion if we emailed them and then they also called us, for example. And then we have a trend over time for that. And then just count of distinct patients and a breakdown between influence and direct conversion, and then the net revenue that was resulting from that. So then if we wanted to look at a different campaign, for example, the cardiology campaign, we could change the filter here, and then we can also look at specific cost centers or service lines or specialties and all of these other things that the team might want to filter on.
Yeah, we do a lot of different reporting, and having all these filters has been outstanding for us, being able to do regional reporting, being able to see what doctors within those regions or within the different service lines, and then even looking at the different patient types to see what types of patients the different service lines are driving. Is ortho driving more existing? Is it driving more new? It's just been great to have all these different filters for us to optimize campaigns based on.
So I'm just going to pop between tabs here for loading time purposes, but the next tab will be the campaign comparison. So this will let us look at really just the upstream activity and a little more detail around some of it. This is something we had in our previous reporting. So we wanted to make sure that was replicated somewhere. So for emails in particular, being able to see how many were sent, how many were bounced, what's that bounce rate look like? So then we get the delivered total, how many people unsubscribed as a result of this campaign, what that rate is, how many opened it, the open rate, the clicks, and the click-through rate. And then we just kind of look at reach and impressions at a less granular level for these other channels, so direct mail, forms, PDC, and phone calls. And then in the center, we have a comparison. So this, we use an LOD calculation to normalize the campaigns by the start date. So we can put them on a common timeline, and then we can compare the rate at which the people that we target with this campaign convert into paying customers with a revenue generating encounter. And that's also based on a couple of LOD calculations. So you can see one thing I want to call out are these big drops. So like with the ortho campaign, you can see that on day 206, we had marketed to 1,277 people. So our conversion percent was up to 68% or 69%. Then on day 213, we sent out a large bulk email, and suddenly we had marketed to 3,537 people, and our conversion percentage drops to 25%. But then it quickly accelerates as people book appointments. You can kind of see that it flattens out every 7 days because those are weekends and we don't really have a lot of counters at those times. I think this has been useful for the team because you can see when we send out a bulk communication, how effective it is by looking at the relative slope. So these first two on the ortho campaign had a very high slope. People converted pretty quickly. And then this third one, very flat, a much lower response rate on that one.
Yeah, and for us on the marketing team, this has been outstanding. In the past, when we would have multiple channels or multiple tactics that we're running, it was difficult to identify which one was having the most success. Here, as Jeremy pointed out, the first two major dips, those are emails that are being sent out. And you see after those emails, we have the conversion rate spiking. The third thing that we sent out here was a direct mail piece, and the conversion rate really flattens off at that point. So for us, that allows us to identify, hey, maybe the direct mail channel is not the right tactic, or maybe it's just the messaging. So maybe we try different messaging. So this really allows us to look channel by channel and see, how all of them are performing over time with an encounter focus.
The next tab is the top providers and timelines. So this lets us see a timeline by week of what volume of communication we had on a campaign. And then the orange line is the running sum of the marketing driven net revenue. So you can see in cardiology that we have these like a couple of bulk direct mail sends and then a couple of smaller ones later. And there's sort of a smattering of phone calls and emails going out as well throughout that time. And then at the bottom, we can look at the top 20 providers by appointments made to see who's getting the most business as a result of this campaign. Since this is cardiology, we can come up here and just filter this to the cardiology providers. And then this allows the team to reach out to those providers who are seeing an impact. And like Eric mentioned earlier, they can work with them to do some direct paid marketing activity. So it looks like the dashboard reset there. So you can see on the ending campaign, we see like much more diversity in terms of what channels we're using each week. So next I'll pop over to the journey tab. And this is something we developed to really just troubleshoot and audit the way that the attribution model was working to ensure that it was working the way we expected. So for this patient, we can look and see the emails that they've had over time, the direct mails, and then all of the encounters. So you can see like this first encounter, they're at 74% attribution. They've just had this one upstream email. Now they're at 100% because they've had 3 more subsequent emails. And at the bottom, you can see the details of those kind of broken out by impressions versus encounters and on a common timeline. So if we switch to the imaging campaign, we can see how the attribution for a specific encounter will change based on having fewer upstream activities.
And again, this really was used primarily for validating with finance the attribution model, making sure that they signed off on what we were going to do. And that allowed us to have the confidence to go to our executive team when we're reporting out these numbers now and say, hey, finance has looked over all this. These numbers are accurate. So it just gives them a confidence in what we're doing and the return that we're getting on our investment.
Yeah, this one can be a little slow to load. So I'm going to just pop over to the map, which is the last piece here, which is going to show us by zip code, how many people we've targeted and what percentage of the population of that zip code we've targeted. And we got that data from our planning and analysis team. They had information on like the population in 2000, the estimated population in 2019, and the household income on average by zip code. So if we go to this zip code 70123 in the heart of New Orleans, we can click this and see the details about that we've marketed to 8.2% of the population. That's 2,187 people is the reach. So those are the distinct people over a population of 26,656. And then we can see how that climbs over time.
And yeah, so this is a really new feature for us. You can see the percentage of population touch is really low. This is using just 5 of our campaigns as a test as we're starting to really build this out. But for us, from a marketing point of view, this is a great tool for us to have just in terms of planning future years. So identifying the different regions that we're focusing on, making sure we have appropriate coverage in those markets. And if we identify any area that, you know, we're not reaching a huge percentage of the population, we can start redirecting some of our budget to, you know, send out additional mailers, send out additional social ads to really try to increase our coverage in those markets.
And then lastly, what's next for 2021? We're working on picking up the pharmacy data so we can add that to our revenue, as well as retail sales from retail stores. We're also working on getting our fitness center visit data so we can look at which people are utilizing that and try to drive more utilization of those. And also channel-based attribution. So currently all of this attribution is based on campaign, but we'd like to be able to say, just show me how effective emails are at driving revenue versus direct mail. And with that, that wraps up the presentation of the dashboard. Thank you for coming and listening, and we'd love to hear what questions you have.
Hi, Jeremy. There are a few questions. I'll start off. The first one is for Eric. Are you using Peridot for sending emails? Also, are you using Health Cloud?
So we are using Health Cloud. The products that we currently have stood up is Health Cloud, Marketing Cloud, which Marketing Cloud is where we are sending all of our emails through right now. And then we're in the process of setting up Interaction Studio and Commerce Cloud.
Okay. The next question, are there milestones in the customer journey for the customer to inform it? I.e., Amy tells you in one of the emails that she already has a pediatrician somewhere else.
So we haven't built in anything like that yet in terms of if she would have a pediatrician with another health system. Most of it is primarily triggering off of diagnosis, procedure, or even like age-based triggers that we have in Ochsner data. It's a great question though. Definitely something that we'll try to find a way to pull in, but currently not at the moment.
Who is the audience that uses your dashboards for the CRM? Is it the nurse, doctor, marketing team, finance?
The dashboard we're just showing, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's primarily me and Jeremy for the moment. I report out to all of the different service lines and executive teams, the downstream data that we're seeing. My boss also views it pretty regularly, but we haven't gotten to the point where we've built out, you know, a specific dashboard for a service line so that the service line leaders could then hop in and really look through it. So we've wanted to make sure that the attribution logic has, you know, been set up properly, the householding logic's in there and feeding in properly. So at the moment, it's just really me, Jeremy, and my boss that are kind of really diving in on a regular basis.
There are a couple more questions that were posted in the chat. If you folks wouldn't mind putting them in the Q&A, and then maybe Eric and Jeremy can answer them by typing in their answer in the Q&A due to time. I do have one question is, how long did it take you guys to build this?
So
seems pretty intense.
Yeah, the Salesforce implementation started in 2019. That was really standing up Marketing Cloud and Health Cloud at the beginning. Jeremy, do you want to talk to the actual dashboard and the timing there?
Yeah, I think it took probably most of it came together over the course of 2 to 3 months. Of course, we've continued to add new features as we've gotten other sources of data. So I wouldn't say that it was complete after that amount of time, but the attribution model portion took about 2 to 3 months.
Cool. I was very fascinated by your presentation. I'm sure many others were. So now we're going to turn it over to Sean Miller, who is going to talk about Cerner's COVID-19 dashboard. Sean, do you want to go ahead and share your screen? And Sean, you're still on mute.
Yeah, I know. All right, there we go. Hello. Okay, yeah. So let me go ahead and get fired up here. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here with you all today. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about COVID-19 and Tableau Public. And let's see. All right, can everyone see my slides?
Yes, it looks good.
Great. All right. So what I'm here to talk about today is how we needed to use, we wanted to create a COVID-19 dashboard to help support anybody in the health profession, in the health medical field, not just with Cerner clients, but public health officials, state health officials, individual health systems, really anybody. We wanted to do that. And so there were some things that we had to work through to do that. Ultimately, we ended up using Tableau Public, but what I want to talk about is the process of how we determined that. And then also we'll wrap up with a little bit of a demo of the dashboard so that if you haven't seen it, you can see what we built and how you can use it to help. It's got a lot of different things going on with it. Utilization forecasting, cases forecasting, and some really cool stuff. So real quick, if you're not familiar, I do work at Cerner. And if you're not familiar, Cerner is an EMR provider on the IT side. So we make the software for the EMR, but we have, as you can see, we're huge, lots of different clients, lots of different associates, all working from home right now, have been since April, as I'm sure many of you have been. And my part is down in the bottom left. I work in the Healthy Intent platform, where we kind of bring together all sorts of patient data, and we create a longitudinal record for a patient, starting all the way at the first encounter of the EMR, all the way through the claims, and we have that entire lifeline for patients. So I get to do some really cool stuff. And when COVID really started spiking back in March and April, I got to do even more stuff. So who am I? I'm Sean. I've been working at Cerner since 2014. Been working with Tableau since 2015. I'm a Tableau certified desktop professional. In the community, you probably, if you're not familiar, I am Hipster Viz Ninja, and I am a Tableau social media ambassador, and I've been in the community since a little over about 2015. Beginning of 2016 is when I took the big leap into the community and haven't looked back. So the community has helped me immensely in my day-to-day job at Cerner. I can't speak highly enough, but that's not what this conversation is about. So we'll move on from there. So follow me if you want to on Twitter, Hipster Viz Ninja. I also have a blog under the same name. All right. So let's set the stage. Does this sound familiar? I'm sure it will to a lot of you. So Jeff, as we said at the top, was supposed to be co-presenting with me, is not feeling well. So it's just me today. So, but anyway, this was around beginning of April. Hey, you have a few minutes? Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. You're my boss. What do you want? Well, the data science team has built a really cool predictive model algorithm regarding COVID, and they built this web app. We want to put it on Cerner.com on our webpage for everybody to see, but the marketing team isn't quite satisfied with what they've built. Can you take a look? Yeah, absolutely. Are there any deadlines? Well, yeah, so there are deadlines, and it's like yesterday. So we're going to need you to work. We're going to put our heads together and we're going to get this together pretty quickly. So certainly, I'm sure there's a few of you who can sympathize with that sentiment. So, but after we got that out of the way, it was a really, really cool project. So the timeline. Tuesday afternoon, initial notification that work was coming on the way. And then Wednesday afternoon, we had the first meeting with the data science team to get an understanding of what the data is, what the original web app looked like, and how quickly we could convert that over to Tableau. As you know, as I'm sure many of you know, the speed to production with Tableau is really unmatched, especially when you're comparing it against a custom web app with lots and lots of code, and so you can fail fast and iterate fast with Tableau. So they spent 6 weeks building a web app, and I turned that around into Tableau in a matter of hours. And then we quickly iterated through the weekend. By Monday evening, we had an MVP ready to go. And then we continue, right? So we're, especially at Cerner in my role, we don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And we put things out, and whenever we get to a minimally viable product, and then we'll iterate through that, because Tableau is just that quick to do things. So some project parameters that I want to make sure that we set the stage for. So the data source, we're going to use the Johns Hopkins data. We're feeding that in. The data science team was feeding in the Johns Hopkins data, as well as a lot of other data sources, running the model, and then they had the limited text files. And they were loading those into our local GitHub page. Other parameters, unfortunately, on our website, on Cerner's website, we have a 970-ish pixel width, which means I couldn't really go full screen with Tableau. I was limited to 970 on desktop, which was unfortunate, but those are the parameters we get. And we needed access. We needed open access for literally anyone with an internet connection to be able to view this. That's where things got a little bit hairy in the beginning, is thinking through how we're going to get through that. So how did we tackle the access? Well, first off, to kind of set the stage for our Cerner or our Tableau environment at Cerner, we're a core based, so guest access is an option. However, we're a multi-tenant environment, and we have a lot of PHI and PII restrictions due to that. So what we do is we turn off guest access at the cluster level to limit the risk of accidental activation. And then we've got a huge HIPAA thing going on. So guest access was not going to work. Tableau Online was something we also looked into. Tableau, we actually contacted them, see if we could spin up a site. They said, absolutely, we'll help you with accounts. Unfortunately, again, guest access is not something that Tableau Online supports, so that wouldn't work. And then it was like, okay, Tableau Public. Let's think about Tableau Public. Is that an option? And the more that we looked at it, we said, yeah, we can do this. It allows guest access. It's built for it. It has built-in scalability. We're going to put all the resources on Tableau Public. We're not going to consume our own resources, and it's a familiar process, which is why I can't. Speaking back to the community aspect and being involved in the community, I can't stress it enough. My current platform, our environment, we're currently on 2019.4. We're getting ready to go to 2020.2. But because I'm active in the community and I'm active on Tableau Public, I know the newest, greatest, and greatest features. So when I get a project like this where I get to use that, I know the things that I can do that I couldn't do in our own environment, which opens up a lot of flexibility. So those were all good things. So But with Tableau Public, there's also cons that come along with that, right? You're limited by data source. You're limited to flat files, and you don't really have any live connections or real database connections. Also, any kind of updates generally is going to mean it's going to be a manual update, which is not really great. But then we also know that Google Sheets is the exception, where Tableau Public will actually go out and refresh your Tableau, your Google Sheets connection once a day, which is great, and also the up-to-date Tableau versions, which is much faster than what we have available at Cerner. All right, so let's talk about Google Sheets. Again, this is where Jeff's expertise would have really come in handy. I am not a coder. I'm not an engineer. Jeff is much more better at that. I just make cool dashboards. But Jeff, who has that expertise, went and did a lot of research and found out that there's a lot of integration with Google Sheets. There's an API. And so he started looking into that. He spun up a persistent desktop, set up Python scripts, wrote about 275 lines of code to go out to Git. And first, we're going to read the CSV from Git. We're going to load that CSV into pandas. We're going to then we're going to get all the data types right, and then we're going to write the pandas to the Google Sheet. And then there's only like 2 lines of code additionally at the end that once that process is complete, it will send our team a Microsoft Teams notification in our channel that the process has run, as well as some metadata about what it loaded, so that we can see when it's found, when it's when the process is updated, how many rows were updated. We also did a date diff, because if you've been working with the Johns Hopkins, you know that sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. So we always have the ability to kick off the Python process manually, but we also set it up to be scheduled. So we did that date diff calculation to see if we needed to go run it again to see if we had the latest and greatest data. And then I set up the Google Sheet to automatically update based at basically 7 a.m. every morning. And the way that I found that is, if you go into Tableau Public that's connected to a Google Sheet and you refresh it, you manually send a refresh at a particular time. That's kind of the time that Tableau says, okay, you want to do that every single day. So that's kind of how I did that. All right. So here's a screenshot of what we created. There's the link down there below. Don't try and type that in. If you just go to Google and do Cerner COVID dashboard, it's the very first link that pops up, and you can follow along with any of that. And we're going to go through a quick demo here in just a little bit. So some of the options, some of the lessons that we learned out of this, always keep an open mind, look for new options, look for all of the tools that are available to you. Again, like I said, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Get things out quickly and iterate, because Tableau is quick like that. Also know that you have to live within the parameters of your tool, which is why it's very beneficial to know what those limits are within Tableau, and being collaborative in a team environment is just that much more beneficial. And this was another thing that was interesting. An interesting thing for me to work around was the mobile aspect. Again, on our Cerner environment, on our Tableau environment, our internal, we don't really use mobile at all. It's not really something that we needed to think about, because 99% of our users are on desktop. So mobile was never anything like that. But with this project, mobile was definitely going to be something that we needed to work around. So thinking about how to use Device Designer thinking about how I can take what I have on desktop, what the view looks like on desktop, and how can I manage that in a mobile presentation was also something that we did. And when we started looking at the Google Analytics for the web page, we saw about an 80-20 split between mobile and desktop. So mobile was definitely something that we needed to think about as well. All right. So that was the technical side, the engineering side. What I want to do really quickly now is just kind of walk you through what this dashboard does, how you can use it. And so I'm going to do a quick refresh on this, and just so I don't get any lag. Okay, so what this data science model predictor does, it's got a lot of different things going on. This is actually like I said, this is probably like the 10th iteration of this dashboard, but there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. So what we're doing now is we're looking at all of the cases that have happened, and then where the data science model is projecting out case growth 14 days in the future. We're also looking at the average daily cases per 10K, and then we created using an epidemiological algorithm to kind of think about a resurgence risk index, which basically looks at the growth of cases, and kind of puts that into a risk model, if you will. So this first page right here just looks at you know, the 14-day projected growth increase. And what this is all the data science model. I didn't have anything to do with that, but a couple of interesting things that we did inside as opposed to Tableau. So I'm going to get a little bit Tableau specific since that's what I do. But using set controls, again, I was on 2018.3 when we first started doing this back in April, and so I was very limited if we went the old way, but with the Tableau public version, I could use the latest and greatest. And set controls are really awesome. So the one thing that we did when we built this was we wanted to be able to provide county and state public health officials a way to see county level utilization forecasting. And so what we wanted to do was, so you can come in here and you can select a county. I'll just select my county that I'm in, Jackson County, Missouri. And what you can see is I'm not just going to show my county. I'm also going to show all counties within a 100-mile radius of that. So here's Jackson County right here, and then here are all the counties within a 100-mile radius of that. So you can kind of see, because we know that community spread, we know that things are kind of happening. It's not really just contained within a county. It's really more regional than that. So this allows you to kind of look at all of those different areas. Additionally, you can search by metro area. So if you just want to look at the Kansas City metro area or your metro area, you put that in. And we had a crosswalk to pull in at the county level. We're going to show each county contained within the Pickett metro area, the New Orleans metro area, all counties within that metro area. But what's really cool is within here, within each tooltip here, you can see the third line, the second line to the bottom is we're using estimated bed counts, ICU bed counts, and ventilators. And we're going out to, we're getting third-party data to bring that in. But what's really interesting is if you click on this, and then you go into this pop-out here, what's really interesting is down here, as you can say, you know, you can see kind of where they've gone and case counts and where we're projecting them to go. But then down here is what this is if you hit this 8,000 case count, we are predicting in our model that you will be at 44% bed capacity for that county. You'll be at 82% ICU bed utilization, and then 76% ventilator utilization. So the black reference bar here is the 100% utilization predicted, and then the actual is what what you have available. So this was a really cool way, and the reason we did this again is because we wanted county and state public health officials, health systems to be able to manage resources and move things around from county to county or health system to health system. You can kind of get a sense of where you've got you know where you've got a surplus, where you've got a deficiency, and kind of move resources around that way. And then later, and then scrolling down at the bottom here, we also have just a straight table of, okay, here are the counties that you need to pay attention to. And so this is just a list of every single county sorted by their 14-day growth percentage with a trend line showing just how bad it could get, what we're projecting could get. So yeah, that's what we've done. It was like I said, it was a really fun project. I wish I could use the full width of the screen and really kind of make this really beautiful, and kind of take some advantages of some other things, but it is what it is, right? So you work within the parameters of your tools, as I mentioned earlier. So this is what we got. Did some really cool things. You can, like I said, go to this website or just go to Google and type in Cerner COVID dashboard, and it's the first one there. So having said that, yeah, I think that's about it. And thanks so much. So what kind of questions do we have?
Well, lots of good comments. Cool Cerner COVID dashboard, great dashboard. Love the drill downs and the tooltips. Question we have is, why was there CMS requirements for the COVID dashboard?
So I think, don't think CMS as a part of the medical CMS. I think this is more the CSS type of kind of the technology requirements, and unfortunately I don't have the knowledge to accurately answer why 970 width was our max, but like I said, you work within the tools you've got.
Okay, and then there is a question about for the predictive model. What type of predictive model was used for the growth percentage?
Sure. So down at the bottom, if you scroll down on this web page, we go into all of the different Cerner models that we used, all of the different inputs, parameters, all of those things, all of the quantifications. We go through, we list out all of those to do there. So so just check this out. Again, I didn't create the data model. I didn't create the predictive model, so I can't really speak to that. I just kind of ingested the data model output and created this for everyone.
Somebody wants to know, could this be embedded in M pages?
So that is, we do have, if your M page allows for outside URLs, yeah, you can absolutely go to this web page. It's open, and you can take this embed code and take it wherever you want. Absolutely.
Okay, and did I hear you correctly? You built this with Tableau Public versus
Yes.
Tableau Desktop?
Yes.
And does that make a difference when you're embedding the dashboard on Tableau Public onto your website?
Nope.
Okay. This is another predictive modeling question. In looking back retrospectively, was the predictive model reasonably accurate, or did you tweak it, or did this data science team tweak it along the way and continue to refine it as needed?
Yeah, they've been really on top of it and looking at it and tweaking it and making sure that that things are lining up. I haven't really been involved in looking at how accurate it was or is. That's really, I've had that kind of floating in the back of my mind, like, okay, so we predicted this, but can we take a snapshot of the prediction and then look at what actually happened? I have not been involved in any of that, but I'm sure that the data science team has been on top of that.
Wonderful. We actually don't have any more questions in the Q&A.
Awesome.
So why don't we turn it over to either Simon, Lindsay, or Mark?
I think Simon might have had to jump, so he's gone. I think that's it. The last couple notes that I have, and then Lindsay, if you have anything as well. Please be on the lookout for our next meeting. As a reminder, if you or you know of anyone who might be interested in presenting at a future user group, please feel free to connect to myself, Nicole, Lindsay, or Simon. We're always happy to have new speakers, new ideas for things to bring to this group. But other than that, just a thank you again to our speakers, Sean, Jeremy, Eric. Really, really cool stuff today. And again, recognizing all of the, I think, things that we all have on our plates the last several months. I do really appreciate you making the time for this. And Lindsay, I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone as well. And Sean, really cool to see like your dashboard in action, something that you actually guys worked on and built for kind of that immediate turnaround and whatever. I hadn't actually seen this before, so it's really neat to see kind of that prediction and even look at, you know, your own personal county and the 100-mile radius and see what's going on. And the bed capacity, it's something I talk about a lot with certain folks in my community when we talk about case counts, but really having access to see how does that actually play out and mean in relation to, you know, the healthcare system in your area. So really useful, awesome to see that whole process.
Yeah. So yeah, for that, for anybody who wants to dive deeper into that, there's Definitive Healthcare is the website that kind of gathers all of the bed utilization, and that's where we kind of got all that together.
Great, thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yep.
All right.
So, and the last thing that I'll add, this meeting was recorded. We will be able to share that hopefully in the next couple of days. So be on the lookout for that as well. But otherwise, thanks everybody, and have a good rest of your week and weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Stay safe. Bye.